The world stood still as the news of Assata Shakur's funeral sent shockwaves across the globe. Crowds gathered, tears flowed, and hearts broke in silence. But what happened next left everyone speechless. Rapper Common stepped forward and delivered a tribute so powerful that it moved millions to tears. This wasn't just a farewell, it was a message to the world, from a revolutionary fighter to a symbol of eternal resistance. Assata's final goodbye became a moment that will be remembered forever. Here's what really happened on that unforgettable day. Assata Shakur was more than just a name, she was a force. A voice that refused to be silenced. Born Joanne Chesimard, she rose to prominence during one of the most turbulent times in American history. As a passionate civil rights activist and a proud member of the Black Liberation Army, she stood at the front lines of a struggle for equality and justice that many were too afraid to fight. To some, she was a freedom fighter. To others, a rebel. But to her people, she was a symbol of courage, resistance, and unbreakable will. Her story is one of defiance against a system that sought to crush her spirit. Accused in the 1970s of crimes she always claimed were part of a political war against Black liberation, Assata became one of the most wanted women in America. Yet even as the odds stacked against her, she never bowed down. In 1979, she escaped from prison, a daring act that turned her into a living legend. She sought refuge in Cuba, where she lived in exile for more than 4 decades, never forgetting the people and the cause she left behind. Over the years, Assata's name became a rallying cry. Her words echoed through generations, inspiring movements, songs, and speeches. Artists like Tupac Shakur, her godson, and activists around the world carried her message of resistance forward. Her image appeared on posters, her quotes on banners, her legacy in the hearts of millions who believed in freedom at any cost. So when news broke of her passing, it wasn't just the end of a life, it was the closing chapter of a revolutionary era. Her funeral wasn't simply a farewell, it was a gathering of souls who came to honor a woman who had defied oppression and inspired hope. And in that moment, the world paused, not in silence, but in reverence. The day of Assata Shakur's funeral felt like a moment suspended in time, heavy with history, emotion, and unspoken power. The air was thick with sorrow, yet charged with pride. People from every walk of life, elders who had marched in the civil rights era, young activists carrying signs, poets, musicians, and countless admirers gathered under one roof to honor the woman who had defied an empire. The crowd moved like waves, whispering prayers, singing songs of resistance, their voices trembling with both grief and gratitude. The hall was draped in black and red, the colors of struggle and liberation. Candles flickered softly along the aisles, their flames reflecting off teary eyes. Murmurs of old freedom chants echoed, "Power to the people, we are still here." Outside, banners fluttered with her image, and quotes from her writings were displayed across the walls. "It is our duty to fight for our freedom." Every corner carried her spirit. Unyielding, unforgettable. Poets took the stage, their words heavy with loss but burning with fire. Singers hummed spirituals once sung on protest lines. Each note felt like a heartbeat, each tear a silent salute. People held each other close, some crying openly, others standing tall, their fists raised in quiet defiance. It wasn't just a funeral, it was a revolution remembering its mother. The atmosphere was solemn yet powerful, as if the past and present had joined hands to pay tribute to one of their bravest warriors. Then, a hush fell over the room. The music faded. All eyes turned toward the stage. From the shadows, a familiar figure stepped forward. The rapper, poet, and activist who had long carried Assata's words in his art. Dressed in black, his expression calm, yet heavy with emotion, he walked slowly toward the microphone. The silence was complete, no whispers, no movement, only the sound of breath held in anticipation. Common looked out at the crowd, his eyes reflecting the same sorrow they felt. And then, he began to speak, not in a speech, but in poetry. His voice was deep, steady, and soulful. "Assata, you taught us to rise when the world tried to break us. You showed us that freedom is more than a dream, it's a duty. Your fire lit the path we still walk. Your courage made us unafraid." Each line struck like a drumbeat, measured, powerful, alive. He spoke of her strength, her exile, her faith, her fight. He called her the mother of resistance, the heart of the movement, a voice that never bowed. As he recited, images of her life played on a screen behind him, marches, speeches, her radiant smile in exile. The crowd wept openly now. Some closed their eyes, whispering her name. Others stood, hands over hearts, letting the words wash over them. And when Common ended, his final line hung in the air like a promise: "Assata lives." In every voice that speaks truth, In every soul that refuses to kneel, a roar of applause followed, not the kind born of performance, but the kind born of gratitude, of unity, of pain shared and hope reignited. People rose to their feet, clapping through tears, chanting her name, Assata, Assata. In that moment, the funeral became something more, a call to remember, to resist, to rise. Common's tribute was not just a poem. It was a bridge between generations. A reminder that though Assata's body may have rested, her spirit would march on forever as the last notes of a freedom hymn faded into silence. The hall grew still, so still you could hear the faint crackle of candle flames. The air shifted. Every eye turned toward the stage as a lone figure stepped forward. It was Common, the Grammy-winning rapper, poet, and activist whose voice had long echoed the spirit of revolution. Dressed in a simple black suit, his face solemn but calm, he carried himself with quiet reverence, as though walking into sacred space. He paused for a moment, looking out over the crowd. Thousands gathered in grief, pride, and remembrance. The weight of history hung in the air. Then, with one deep breath, he stepped up to the microphone. The hall held its breath with him. His voice, when it came, was steady yet trembling with emotion. He didn't begin with a speech or a eulogy. He began with poetry, his words rising like a chant, raw and powerful, each syllable echoing through the hall like the beat of a drum. They tried to bury her name, but you can't silence a storm. From Jersey to Havana, her truth was reborn. Assata, you taught us freedom is the fight. You showed us the courage to walk through the night. The crowd leaned in, many with tears streaming down their faces. Common's voice grew stronger, resonating with the rhythm of rebellion and the melody of memory. He spoke of her strength in the face of oppression, her courage to defy injustice. Her exile turned into a symbol of survival. You carried our pain across oceans of exile, spoke truth when the world chose denial. You are the heartbeat in every march, the whisper in the wind that says, we will not bow. The room swelled with emotion. Some clasped their hands, some nodded silently, others whispered her name under their breath. Common's words painted a portrait of a woman who had never surrendered, who had turned persecution into purpose. Then came the moment that would break the internet. He looked up, his voice rising with conviction, and declared, Assata lives through us every time we speak truth. She breathes again. Zur fight is not over because we are still here. A silence followed, heavy and electric. Then, as if moved by a shared heartbeat, the crowd rose to their feet. A standing ovation swept through the hall. Thunderous applause, tears, raised fists, chants of her name filling the space like a storm of love and remembrance. Phones lifted. Cameras flashed. Clips of the tribute would soon flood social media, trending across platforms. Hashtags like hashtag ASSATA lives, hashtag Common Tribute, and hashtag Power to the People began to explode online. Millions watched, rewatched, and shared the video, calling it one of the most emotional moments of the decade. Common stepped back from the mic, eyes glistening, hands folded in respect. He didn't need to say anything more. The message had been delivered. It wasn't just a performance, it was a promise, a vow that Assata's legacy would never fade, that her story would live on in every voice that dared to speak truth. That night, as clips of his tribute spread across the world, people wrote, I didn't know I could cry for someone I never met. Others said, this is not the end, this is the beginning of remembering. Common's tribute was more than a poem. It was a moment in history, a bridge between past and present, between one woman's struggle and a generation's awakening. It was a reminder that while Assata Shakur's body may have been laid to rest, her spirit had risen immortal, unbreakable, alive in the hearts of all who still fight for freedom. The moment Common stepped away from the microphone, the room seemed to exhale all at once. For a few seconds, there was no sound, only the quiet hum of emotion that filled every corner of the hall. Then, as if a dam had broken, tears began to flow freely. People clutched one another, whispering her name through sobs. Some lifted their fists high in the air, others pressed their hands over their hearts, trying to hold on to the weight of the moment. The energy was overwhelming, grief mixed with pride, sorrow laced with strength. It was more than mourning. It was a collective awakening. Elders who had once marched alongside Assata sat with tears streaming down their faces, remembering the days when she walked among them as a sister in struggle. Younger activists wept too, their tears carrying the realization that the fight she began still echoed in their own voices today. The hall shimmered with candlelight and emotion, a living testament to her impact. Outside, the reaction rippled across the world. Within minutes, clips of Common's tribute began flooding social media. On Twitter now, hashtags like hashtag ASSATA forever, hashtag Common Tribute, and hashtag power to the people started trending globally. Thousands shared memories, quotes, and pictures of Assata Shakur. Some wrote about how her story had shaped their activism. Others posted simple words. We owe her everything. Celebrities, artists, and activists added their voices. Angela Davis shared a message calling Assata the heartbeat of resistance. Talib Kweli posted, Assata taught us to be fearless. Her fight lives on. Ava DuVernay tweeted, this is more than a funeral, it's a movement remembering its mother. Instagram became a memorial wall. Images of Assata in Cuba, her powerful quotes, and moments from the funeral flooded timelines. Videos of Common's performance gathered millions of views within hours. People commented things like, I felt every word. And I haven't seen such raw emotion since. Malcolm's eulogy. Even those who had never heard her name before were moved to learn her story. The younger generation began searching her speeches, reading her autobiography, discovering the woman behind the legend. Across the internet, it wasn't just mourning, it was revival. Assata Shakur's name was being spoken again, not as a fugitive, but as a freedom fighter, a teacher, a mother of the movement. That night, the grief was heavy, but so was the pride. Nostalgia filled the air, memories of marches, chants, and old struggles rising like ghosts of history. Yet with every tear came a spark of hope. Because even in death, Assata had united her people once more, reminding them that the fight for justice never truly ends. And neither does the legacy of those who dare to lead it. Assata Shakur's life was more than a story, it was a statement. Every chapter, every struggle, every word she spoke stood for something larger than herself. She became the embodiment of freedom, resistance, and courage, a woman who refused to surrender even when the world turned its back on her. To those who listened, she was not just a revolutionary, she was a teacher, a guide, and a living symbol of the unyielding fight for justice. Assata's legacy is carved into the hearts of those who still dream of liberation. She stood against a system that sought to silence her, and in doing so, she gave a voice to millions who felt unheard. Her defiance wasn't born from hatred, it was born from love. Love for her people, for truth, and for a world free from oppression. Through exile, isolation, and accusation, she remained steadfast, never renouncing her beliefs, never apologizing for her courage. Her story became a blueprint for resilience. Generations of artists, thinkers, and activists found strength in her words. Tupac Shakur, her godson, carried her spirit into his music, using his lyrics to expose injustice and inspire change. Common, too, often spoke of her as a beacon, someone whose struggle shaped his understanding of what it means to fight with purpose. Her name appeared in songs, in poetry, in protests, echoing across time and continents. Even those who never met her felt her influence. In classrooms, community centers, and movements around the world, her writings became sacred text, reminders of what it means to stand firm when the odds are impossible. She was not a perfect hero, but a human one, flawed, fierce, and forever free. Her words continue to resonate, sharper and stronger with each passing year. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Those lines, spoken decades ago, are still chanted at rallies and marches today. They have become a mantra for those who refuse to bow, a call to action for anyone who believes that justice is not a privilege, but a birthright. Assata's funeral was not just the end of a life, it was the renewal of a mission. Her name, once whispered in secrecy, is now spoken with pride. Her image, once vilified, now stands as a symbol of fearless resistance. In remembering her, the world is reminded that true revolutionaries never die, they live on, in the voices they've awakened, the hearts they've stirred, and the movements they've inspired. Assata Shakur may have left this earth, but her spirit marches on, unbroken, undefeated. Eternal. Assata Shakur's funeral was not just a farewell, it was a statement to the world. It reminded everyone that some lives are not meant to fade quietly into memory. They are meant to echo, to stir, to challenge. This was not an ordinary ceremony, it was the meeting point of past battles and present struggles. A powerful declaration that the fight for freedom she began decades ago is far from over. The gathering of thousands elders who once marched in the streets and young activists raised on hashtags was proof that Assata's vision had crossed generations. Her story, once buried under controversy, stood now as truth, shining through the voices of those who refused to forget. In many ways, her funeral reflected the ongoing spirit of modern movements like Black Lives Matter and the global calls for equality and justice. The same chants that once echoed in the streets of the 1970s, no justice, no peace, still thunder in rallies today. Assata's words, once considered radical, now form the moral backbone of a generation demanding change. Her defiance in the face of systemic oppression mirrors the resilience of every protester standing against racial injustice, police brutality, and inequality today. Her struggle is not just history, it is prophecy being lived out in real time. That is why Common's tribute carried such weight. He didn't simply honor her memory. He bridged to erase the fire of the past and the voice of the present. Through his poetry, he reminded the crowd that Assata's fight did not end with her exile, and it would not end with her passing. His words were not only a eulogy, they were a call to action. Each verse invited listeners to see themselves in her story, to recognize that the torch she carried now rests in their hands. The message was unmistakable. It wasn't just a goodbye, was a call to keep fighting, to continue speaking truth, to challenge injustice wherever it hides, to love boldly and resist fear. It asked every person in that room, and everyone watching around the world, to look inward and ask, what will you do with the freedom she fought for? The impact was undeniable. People left the funeral not just in tears, but with renewed purpose. Across social media, in community circles, and among activists, her name became a rallying cry once again. The event became more than a commemoration, became a reminder that heroes are not meant to be mourned in silence, but followed in spirit. Assata Shakur's farewell was not the closing of a story, it was the turning of a page. Her legacy now lives in every voice that demands justice, in every protest that rises against oppression, and in every heart that refuses to give up. The bigger picture is clear. She may have left this world, but her revolution marches on, alive in the people she inspired, and in the fight that continues today. Assata Shakur may be gone, but her voice still echoes through every protest, every poem, every heart that refuses to kneel. Her journey from a young activist to an enduring symbol of resistance reminds us that courage never truly dies. It transforms, passing from one generation to the next. The fire she lit decades ago still burns in the streets, in the songs, and in the souls of all who dare to dream of freedom. Common's tribute was more than words, it was a promise. A reminder that Assata's legacy lives on, not just in history books, but in us. Her story is a mirror reflecting our own struggles, our own hopes, and our own duty to fight for justice. As the candles fade and the crowds disperse, one truth remains: the revolution she began is not over. It's waiting for each of us to carry it forward. Now we turn to you. Did Common's tribute move you too? What was the moment that touched your heart the most? And tell us, what's your favorite Assata quote, the one that inspires you to stand tall, even when the world feels heavy? Share your thoughts below in the comments. Let's keep her spirit alive through conversation, through memory, and through action. If this story touched you, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that reveal the truth behind the legends. Your voice matters. Add it to the chorus that keeps Assata's message alive. And stay tuned, because next, we uncover the untold story of Tupac Shakur's deep connection to Assata, and how her influence forever changed the heart of hip-hop and the message of a generation. You won't want to miss it.